This episode will cover two supernatural dreams of Saint John Bosco about a marmot and a demonic dog that symbolize how the devil holds people back from the sacraments. He also gives some incredible guidelines for confessors that should be heard by priests everywhere. They're forgotten truths. The Miracles and Prophecies of Saint John Bosco, a project of America Needs Fatima. I'm your host, Matthew Miller. Subscribe for new episodes every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. At the beginning of the school year, 1859, the oratory had some 20 clerics belonging to the Archdiocese of Turin. With their help, Don Bosco was finally realizing a long-cherished goal, a secondary school on the premises, so that he would no longer need to send his boys to town to the private schools. He imitated St. Teresa of Avila, who rated prayers together with work much higher than prayer without work. Spiritual progress isn't made through much thinking, but rather through much loving, she used to say. And if you ask how one can acquire this loving, I would reply, make up your mind to work and suffer for God, and really mean it by doing it whenever the occasion presents itself, especially when you must carry out acts of obedience. At this time of year, the oratory again swarmed with pupils, both old and new. Among the latter was a 14-year-old lad named Dominic Parigi, whose admission as a student hadn't followed routine procedure. In October 1859, attracted by Don Bosco's fame, he set out on his own for the oratory. Don Bosco saw in the boy's features the reflection of a pure, innocent soul. "Who are you, my son?" "Dominic Parigi from Chieri." "And what can I do for you?" "Keep me here." "But you're not registered." "Does that really matter? Can't you register me now?" "Look, let's do things the right way. Go back and ask your parents to return with you. Then we'll talk things over and everything will be settled." "No, I'm not going back." "Then write a letter." "Not I. You write it, please, Father." Don Bosco was stumped for a moment. Then, smiling at the youngster's candor, he said, "All right, Dominic, I'll write them." The boy stayed and completed his Latin studies. Afterward, he entered the diocesan seminary and became a wonderful priest. Another noteworthy new pupil was a 13-year-old Jewish lad named Yarak. He wasn't the first one of that faith because Don Bosco had already interested himself in the conversion and baptism of several other Jews. Yarak's father was a learned rabbi of Ivrea, who for several years had been a convert to the Catholic faith. But during those days, Don Bosco seemed unduly worried. He spoke of a dream in which he had seen a tall man wandering about town, lightly touching people on the face with 2 fingers. They would instantly turn black and drop dead. Could it perhaps symbolize a moral epidemic? But more on that in future episodes, because I think he was alluding to 2 moral epidemics in 1861, religious indifferentism and the inroads of Protestantism. Meanwhile, as usual, Don Bosco continued to give a short talk to the community after night prayers. A dear old friend, then a pupil, recalled the following. "One of the first good night talks I heard from Don Bosco in 1859 was on the frequent reception of the sacraments, a practice not yet generally taken up by the boys after their recent summer vacations. He narrated a dream in which he seemed to be standing near the oratory main entrance while the boys returned from home. As they walked past him, he could see the state of their souls before God. A stranger also walked in with them, holding a small box. He mingled with the boys, and when the time came for confessions, he opened it, and taking out a little marmot, started to give a puppet show of sorts. For those who don't know, a marmot is the largest creature in the squirrel family and reminiscent of a groundhog. Rather than go to the church, the boys crowded around him to enjoy the fun, while he slowly withdrew into a corner of the playground farthest from the church. Then, without naming anyone, Don Bosco proceeded to describe the spiritual condition of many boys. He also spoke of the devil's efforts and snares to distract and discourage them from confession. His portrayal of the little marmot's tricks provoked many a laugh, but it also made the boys reflect seriously on their spiritual condition. All the more so when later he told private inquirers things they thought nobody could ever come to know. This dream was instrumental in inducing most of the boys to go to confession much more often, and generally once a week. Naturally, reception of Holy Communion became very frequent. I also remember once, as Don Bosco was talking of bodily health and of the important need of caring for it, the cleric Joseph Bongiovanni asked, "What are we to do, then, to enjoy good health and live a long life?" Don Bosco replied, "I'll give you a secret, or rather a prescription. To enjoy good health and live a long life, you need 4 things. 1, a clear conscience when you go to bed at night. That is, no fear of eternity. 2, moderation in eating. 3, an active life. 4, good companions. That is, fleeing from those who are corrupt." The saint always spoke against bad companions who discuss immoral things and rob an innocent soul of his purity. He called together the oratory confessors and warned them to be very cautious in questioning boys about the 6th commandment, lest they teach them things they don't know. It was during this meeting that he gave very useful guidelines for confessors, urging them not to refuse absolution to backsliders and habitual sinners if they show at least some good will to correct themselves, unless they felt that denying absolution or permission for communion in some cases seemed likely to shake them and make them take positive steps for reform. He told confessors not to begrudge time spent in zealously helping insufficiently prepared penitents and to meditate upon the frightful condition of a soul which lives in mortal sin for even a single hour. Lastly, he exhorted them not to give a light penance for grave sins, but to prescribe one that would be effective in preventing relapses. For example, daily meditations for a week from the Companion of Youth, or the Stations of the Cross, a visit to the Blessed Sacrament, a chaplet in honor of Our Lady of Sorrows, and so on. These were all contained in the same prayer book that was issued to the oratory boys. In short, the penitent is to be brought to concentrate on some fact or truth therein contained. Such penances will bear fruit, he said. Also, they should be very kind and patient in hearing boys' confessions so as not to lose their confidence. At the same time, he stressed that the prudence and persuasiveness needed by a confessor to win youngsters' hearts are heavenly gifts, attainable only by constant prayer, pure intention, and acts of penance and sacrifice such as zealous confessors practice. He then went on to speak about sacrilegious confessions of boys deliberately concealing mortal sins, and clarified the point with a supernatural incident. "One night," he said, "I dreamt of a boy. His heart was being eaten up by worms as he tried to pluck them out. I paid no attention to the dream. But the following night, I again saw this boy. Now a giant mastiff straddled him, gnawing away at his heart. I was sure that the Lord had some special grace in store for this boy, whose conscience must have been badly muddled. I kept an eye on him. One day I cornered him. 'Would you do me a favor?' I asked. 'Sure, if I can.' 'You can if you really want to.' 'What is it?' 'Will you really do it?' 'Yes, I will.' 'Tell me, have you ever kept anything back in confession?' He was about to deny it, but I immediately added, 'Why don't you confess this and that?' He glanced at me and burst into tears. 'It's true,' he said. 'It's years since I've wanted to confess that, but I'm too scared.' I comforted him and told him how he could make his peace with God. Thank you all so much for watching, and if you'd like to see a playlist with all of the dreams of Saint John Bosco that we've covered so far on this channel, just click on the link above me here. God bless you, and Our Lady keep you.